What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. About a week ago or so, Russians woke up to the headline Trump's first 100 days and started thinking, wait a second, aren't we talking about a foreign leader here? Why the president of America is our major news? And it's not just Russia, to be honest. Many countries around the world received the same news throughout several past days. The world, it seems, has agreed to treat the first 3 months of the US presidency like the season premiere of a binge-worthy TV show. Except that this is not some kind of a glossy drama on Netflix. Well, it is the real life on the line, on stake, from Kiev's shattered neighborhoods to the marble halls of Washington. On one side, you got a war that's been dragging on for more than 1,100 days. Enough time for 2 new generations of iPhones to emerge. On the other, a self-proclaimed deal maker desperate to wrap up a headline-grabbing peace package as quickly as he can. Or as quickly as he is interested in doing so. And him being interested in the making of the peace is the most crucial part of today's episode and this war in general. The part that Putin, unfortunately, understood too early and too well. Because after realizing that if he can keep Trump's administration hope that everything will be over soon, Putin can endlessly pause and resume the conflict at his will, keeping the attention of the world leaders on his persona and protecting the safety of the regime. So, why have we all become enthralled by a potential near end of war? Not just us, regular people, but the most influential world leaders as well. Because humans' nature, well, we crave closure. We want the ticker to hit zero, the curtain to drop, the credits to roll, and then maybe, just maybe, the world will start making sense once again. But diplomacy is more like a marathon rather than a sprint, full of unexpected dead ends and sharp turns. 100 days. It is etched into political DNA as if carved by the founding fathers themselves. We treat it like a cosmic threshold where rookie leaders prove they are either destined for greatness or doomed to fail.
With Trump, we've seen chaos, we've seen mayhem.
He's all dressed up today.
There's a dust-up over Ukraine.
You're gambling with World War III.
On Gaza, an unconventional approach.
The Riviera of the Middle East. This could be so magnificent.
But have you ever wondered why exactly 100? Like, what's this so magic number? Well, it is arbitrary, a round number that soothes anxious minds with the lie of completeness. In reality, 100 days is barely a blink when nations and wars are at stake. Consider, for example, Napoleon's 100 days in 1815, arguably the most famous usage. The period between his return from Elba and his ultimate defeat in Waterloo. Spoiler alert, well, it ended in disaster. Fast forward to the 20th century and you will see some border skirmishes erupt and die down in less than 100 days. Others, like Vietnam, brew for decades then. The Korean War posed for temporary peace that did not arrive in a neat 100-day package, but took months of slow talks. And meanwhile, the Russian-Ukrainian war passed already day 1175 without any sign of ceremonial ribbon cutting. Psychologically, though, we cling to that number. It's like waiting 100 minutes for an undercooked airline meal, and by minute 99 you are convinced that it's about to get better. Right now, like, just one more minute. We're almost there. Then you taste it and, well, realize it is still bad. Similarly, each press briefing labeled day 50 or day 75 inflates the expectation that day 100 will finally bring the good stuff. And when it doesn't, well, cynicism blooms. This is exactly the idea Putin realized that works perfectly well with Trump. And we'll talk it in more details how he exploits it in one of our next chapters. We have all experienced the agony of anticipation. Standing in a doctor's waiting room, for example, long after your appointment time, and your heart beating with hope that you will hopefully soon get good news. Replace that waiting room with the NATO summit hall, and instead of a psychological diagnosis, you're hoping for geopolitical vitality. Yet, in our obsession with deadlines, we forget that treaties and peace processes are like sand castles built on the edge of a stormy beach. Rushing them risks collapse. A 100-day mark can be a useful milestone for progress reports, but it is no guarantee of deliverables. In fact, when you obsess over the clock, you trade steady construction for satisfying headlines. And yes, you might build your sandcastle, take a quick picture, and then see it collapse with the next wave. Or you can plan, build the walls around, consult with, sandcastle building experts, and then end up building one that wins the sandcastle building competition, with your name being forever inscribed amongst sandcastle building enthusiasts. We're still talking about Trump, Putin, and war, by the way. Well, the choice is yours. Now let's zoom in on the man who planted that 100-day flag in the sand, pun intended. Donald Trump. The 47th President of the United States is a guy whose brand is built on urgency and spectacle. He measures success by tweet counts, TV ratings, and, yes, milestone timelines. Remember, on day 2, he already signed a dozen executive orders. By day 30, he was unveiling a border wall prototype as if it were a new smartphone release. So when his team announced a peace plan by day 100, you could practically hear the gears grinding backstage. Publish headlines, prep the graphics, start taking the interviews. His inner circle, hand-picked negotiators, veteran ambassadors, and, let's face it, a cast of political novices, hoping to taste glory, had a marching order: get it done fast or suffer the wrath of the boss. But diplomacy is not a sausage factory where you crank a lever and increase the output immediately. It is a very messy negotiation involving countless stakeholders. The Ukrainian government, the European Union, the NATO, the Kremlin, and other politicians in Moscow, skeptical members of Congress, and a very American public still struggling from war fatigue. By day 50, leaks started seeping through that the plan was full of holes. By day 75, critics were already asking, are we negotiating even for real, or are we just generating clickbait? And by the big day 100, with no peace treaty signed and Putin refusing to engage in direct conversation or not accepting any peace that lasts longer than 3 days, well, it was time for Trump's team to start pivoting. Internal memos were burned and political experts rebranded the campaign as a process rather than a deadline-driven mission. But that rebrand smelled very fishy. Honestly, since day one, there was a big assumption that if Trump is not able to achieve peace quick, he will get bored and just switch his attention elsewhere. Well, it looks like that, the assumptions turned into reality. Think about it. Would you trust a project manager who promises a finished product in 3 months, and then shows you a half-built prototype and says, trust me, it's the thought that counts? Well, probably not. Yet in politics, sometimes perception matters more than the reality. Trump's administration, ever hungry for wins, dove right into damage control. Hey, it's not our failure, it is only phase 1. But when friends and foes alike start whispering that you've been played, you know the leverage you thought you had has fully evaporated. And for someone as image-conscious as Trump, that's similar to public humiliation. Trump's peace initiative was never just a policy, it was a Broadway show. From the moment he praised Vladimir Putin's strong leadership, it was just pure theater.
The problem is not that Putin is smart, which of course he's smart, but the real problem is that our leaders are dumb. Dumb. So dumb.
But theaters have 2 audiences. Those in the cheap seats who see the underside of the stage, and those in the VIP boxes who only see the glitz. Here's the spoiler. When the footlights rise, the floorboards start to creak, cables droop, and, the paint chips. Reporters in the cheap seats had prime views of the problems in the back corners, while hardliners in Moscow and Washington, who were never going to let this script run off its course, then they just sit there and watch all this spectacle in full bright light. But let's rewind now back to Helsinki summit in 2018, where Trump stood beside Putin and proclaimed, I believe he thinks he's innocent, right after the US intelligence confirmed Russian meddling in American elections. The conclusion was jaw-dropping, the president publicly doubting his own intelligence agencies. That scene set a precedent. Jump ahead to day 100 and you see a similar pattern. Breathtaking announcements followed by the cold glare of reality. The projections in the press room looked spectacular on screen, but colored filters cannot hide the cracks. Meanwhile, Republican hawks and Democratic doves agreed on only one thing. The US looked like it was just repeating, literally, Putin's lines and demands. This collision of ego and optics has real-world consequences. When world leaders cannot agree on whether a promise is genuine or a political stunt, trust erodes faster than infrastructure in the war zone. Ukrainian officials who have suffered unspeakable losses tolerated the grandstanding for a while. After all, any window of opportunity is worth exploring, obviously. But patience wears thin when the gap between promise and performance remains as wide as the Dnieper River. And the American public? Well, polls showed that a majority is skeptical that Trump's grand plan would materialize. Suddenly, the star of the show found himself performing to empty seats, while critics in his own party, hard-right media personalities, Fox News presenters, MAGA influencers, all of them jumped on the bandwagon of skepticism. For Trump, whose life is an unending cycle of applause and outrage, that is a fate worse than bad polls, which is irrelevance. That is precisely the thing Putin understood about Trump and exploited it to his advantage to change his vision about the war completely. Let's finally talk about this right now. When the war just started and did not end in 3 days as Putin planned, the masterminds in the Kremlin were tasked with one and only task. They had to look for an easy way out for their boss so that he can simply save his face. Preferably if he can be seen as victor as well. If not, well, at least neutral outcome is kinda acceptable, but propaganda will make it look like he won anyways. Well, that's exactly what has been happening for the last 3+ years anyways, so it's not like something we came up with out of nowhere. But now Putin understands that the war is actually good for the survival of his regime, so he needs to continue it at all costs. The only problem here is the opinion of the world. I mean, sure, some countries allegedly support the invasion, but most of developed, democratic, and common sense, just literally common sense, world sees this as an unprovoked act of aggression, which it is. But guess what? America as a country sets the trend for the expectations, perception, and how the world thinks. At least once again, most part of it. That's why America is the one and only country that Putin needs to persuade. Luckily, its current president is very favorable for Russia. So all Putin needs to do is to maintain Trump's administration hope that everything will be over soon. Well, and that is precisely what he is doing right now. Trump needs good headlines that make his rule seem legitimate and that he kind of keeps his promises. Talks in Turkey this week, 3-day ceasefire, mineral deals signed. All this makes it look like Trump is doing something and it actually works. And Putin is more than happy to give him that, because it is very non-committing things, to be honest. Promise something and, well, then if you need to find your way out of this promise. Putin obviously is an absolute master of this. What matters is that the promise has been made. It doesn't matter if it is fulfilled now, next week, next month, or just later. As a result, this is a win-win situation for both Trump and Putin. Trump gets his headlines and the image that he can fulfill his obligations. Putin gets the war which he can continue indefinitely. And if the world starts questioning his intentions, well, just tell Trump that everything will be over soon. Just wait a little bit longer. We are getting there, trust me. The question is whether this road of waiting is only 100 years long or if it stretches 100,000 miles over. Well, there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work and see, for example, these episodes in very early access, you can check my Patreon. All the subscriptions is the major contributing factor to the work we do on this channel, which helps us to stay independent. The link is down below. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.